All right, guys, welcome to part 2 of lesson 8.3, 8.3, part 2. This is just more examples, and then we're also going to talk about something called the inverse of the inverse trig functions. So if you got started on your homework and you saw something, you're like, wait a second, we didn't talk about this in the last video, listen to this one, and then hopefully we'll get you figured out. So before we get into inverses, let's talk about another example. So this is another solve the triangle. We're finding all the variables x, y, and z. Where do you want to start? Well, I want to start with angle z. In order to find angle z, we know that the sum of the angles in a triangle are 180, so I can do z plus 38 plus 90 equals 180. Add 38 and 90 and minus that from 180. That gives me z equals 52. Easy. Next, we have to find x and y. It doesn't really matter which one you find first. I am going to look at the angle that's already given to me, which is 38. Before I decide what I'm going to do, I'm going to label all my pieces. My hypotenuse is where y is, my opposite is where 14 is, and then my adjacent is where x is. I think I'm going to find y first because that's my hypotenuse. So, oh, don't forget SOHCAHTOA. It should be like second nature to write that like on the top of every paper or wherever you're at, always write SOHCAHTOA. So if I want to find y, it looks like I've got 14 and y, and that's going to be sine. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to do sine of 38, sine of my angle, equals opposite 14 over hypotenuse, which is y. All right, well, in the last problem, we multiplied to get the denominator to both sides. So now I've got y times sine of 38 equals 14. Well, that's not really helpful because I can't put y sine 38 in my calculator, but I can now get y by itself by dividing by sine 38. Divide by sine 38. You don't get to just multiply the number to the other side because you want the numbers to go. You have to multiply whatever the denominator is to the other side. In this case, it was y, and I ended up having to do in my calculator 14 divided by sine of 38. And that's going to give me my correct answer of y equals 22.7. Y equals 22.7. Okay, now that I found y, we want to find x. I'm probably going to stay at 38 just because I already know what angle that is. Now I can do 14 and x. Well, which trig function uses O and A? Let's TOA. So I'm going to do tangent of 38 equals 14 over x. This is just like the last problem. I don't get to multiply 14 to both sides because I want to. I have to multiply the denominator to both sides, so I get x times tangent of 38 equals 14, and then I'm going to divide by tan 38 from both sides. X equals 14 over tan of 38, and I'm going to throw that in my calculator. 14 divided by tan of 38 is equal to 17.9. All right, not bad. Next part. All right, this is what I was talking about, finding the angle measures using trig. This is called inverse trig. Inverse is opposite. The inverse function of addition is subtraction. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. It undoes it. The inverse of a square is a square root. So what's going on here is this inverse trig undoes a trig function. Inverse. You see it notated by sine to the negative first, cosine to the negative first, tan to the negative first. So whenever you see it raised to the negative first, that means we're doing inverse. It's the opposite. When you're in your calculator, there's a shift button or a second button, and you hit that, you hit second or shift, and then you hit your normal trig function, sine, cosine, or tangent, and that will make this pop up in the calculator. So second, and then your normal sine or cosine tangent, that will make the inverse pop up in your calculator. We only do this when we don't know the angle. If you don't know what the angle is, then we get to do this. So to find A, technically A is equal to the inverse sine of the ratio. Inverse sine, second sine, sine to the negative first of 0.7245. So again, I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to hit second sine. So my calculator says sine to the negative first, and I'm going to type 0.7245 in parentheses, and then I get A equals 46.4 degrees. 46.4 degrees. Let me make that a little nicer. Okay, same idea for the next one. It says cosine B equals 0.2493. So to find B, I'm going to do inverse cosine or second cos of 0.2493. I'm going to type that into my calculator. Second cos 0.2493, end your parentheses, and I get 75.56 if you round. And then last, I'm going to do tan of C equals 9.4618. C equals inverse tangent of 9.4618. Second tangent, so I get tan to the negative first of 9.4618, end your parentheses, and C equals 83 point, oh, I get, this is a fun rounding problem, 9669. Well, if I take that 6 and round that 9 up, it becomes a 0 and bumps that guy up. So C is equal to 84.0 degrees when we round correctly. Okay, we're going to use this for the next couple examples. It says find the measures of T and R. Write a trig equation, what you will enter your calculator, and what your final answer rounded to the 10th place. So I need to find T and R. So let's start with T. I need to find T, and I'm going to use a trig ratio to find it. Let's label my triangle. I've got hypotenuse right here. I've got opposite right there, and I've got adjacent next to T. Which sides do I have? Well, I have opposite and hypotenuse, so which trig function is that? Oh, Miss White, you forgot. SOHCAHTOA. Write that at the top. Which trig function is that? Oh, it's sine. So I'm going to do sine, I can write this bigger. Sine of T equals opposite 29 over hypotenuse 34. In order to find T, T is equal to the inverse sine of 29 divided by 34. And we can type that directly into your calculator. Second sine 29 division 34, end parentheses. That's going to give me T equals 58.5 degrees. Again, if you think that you have everything right, this is what I plugged into my calculator, so I need to show this step. If you get everything right, but for some reason you're not getting this answer, come video chat with me like during class right now so I can help you figure out what's going on. Okay? And then now I'm going to do R. So since I'm looking at a different angle, I'm going to go from a different point of view. So now I'm looking at R. Let's relabel my triangle. It looks like my H is still the same. It's still across from the right angle. But now my opposite is the blank side, and my adjacent is at 29. So I'm not going to do sine now. I'm going to do A and H, which is cosine. So cos of R equals 29 over 34. It's the same ratio, but since it's a different trig function, I'm going to get a different answer. So R equals inverse cos of 29 over 34. And when I plug that into my calculator, I get R equals 31.5. And if we wanted to check ourselves, we could check, you don't have to, but you could, 58.5 plus 31.5 plus 90, does that equal 180? The answer should be yes, it does. Okay, let's do the one last problem. This is the last example that we've got. It says find the values of x and y, write a trig equation, what you will enter in your calculator, and your final answer rounded to the tenths. So again, even though they're not labeled, x and y are both angles because they are on the inside. So I'm trying to find x. What do we do first? Label our triangle. H, O, A. Oh, what I should have done was SOHCAHTOA. Bonus points if that's what you said when I said label the triangle. Write SOHCAHTOA at the top of your page. Based on SOHCAHTOA, which trig function do I have? Which trig function can I use? Cosine. I have A and I have H. Cosine of x equals 4 over 6. Cosine of x equals 4 over 6. To solve, you have to do inverse cos. X equals inverse cos, or second cos, of 4 over 6. Throw that in your calculator, and I get x equals 48.2 degrees. All right, now I got to do y. So now I'm looking at y. I'm going to relabel my triangle. I still have h where 6 is. My O now is at 4, and my A is at the blank side. If I have O and H, which trig function do I have? You guessed it, sine. So sine of y equals 4 over 6. To solve for y equals inverse sine of 4 over 6. And y equals 41.8 degrees. All right. That's the end of the examples. Feel free to watch back if you need extra help. Email me or Google Hangout. Have a good day, guys. Bye.